Tenacious Time Podcast. It's Tenacious Time Podcast. Oh, grab your friends if you have any and come and have a great time with your host, Ricky Tenacious.
Hello, hi, and how are you? Welcome to another edition of the Tenacious Time Podcast. I'm your host, Ricky Tenacious. Thank you very much for tuning in to another episode. Before we get into things, I just want to say, no, Bill Clinton is not my guest today. As a matter of fact, I don't have a guest today at all. Today is just going to be me telling you guys a story about the greatest experience the most memorable experience that I had in high school. So if you're wondering why I mentioned Bill Clinton, that's because earlier this week on Facebook, I made a status saying that Bill Clinton came to my community college, and I've never asked someone to be on my podcast faster. Unfortunately, I didn't really get to talk to Bill, I didn't really get to shake his hand, but I did get to see him for about a good 5 seconds. So what had happened was, I did not know this, but it was Wednesday at school. I showed up for my class I had that day, and the school is absolutely packed in the lounge. There are people running around wearing suits. There are bodyguards. There are people with cameras. There are people with Democratic Party T-shirts. People with Trump supporters all around. So I'm just like, what is going on here? I asked some people outside of the double doors to the lounge, and they said, "Oh, Bill Clinton is speaking at your school today." And I said, "Whoa, that's crazy! I didn't even know about that." So of course I would have loved to stay and watch and listen to Bill, but I had a class right at the same time that he was speaking. So I had to go to class. But of course, during class, I decided to take a bathroom break and a winky. And so I go on this bathroom break, and Bill is already on stage, and everyone has his undivided attention. And just to stress how packed this place was, they decided to do this speech in one of the lounges. I think it's the only lounge we have at CSN actually. So in the lounge, and they cut off half of it, and they set up. They put the American flag up, and then they put the stage before that with the podium and a microphone, of course. And they put multiple rows of chairs. But of course, the rows of chairs got filled up really fast, and there were people lined up outside the doors of CSN trying to get into this event because there's a lot of people that are interested in what Bill Clinton has to say. And so it was super packed, and so there would have been no way of me being able to sit down, but luckily there is a catwalk outside of this lounge. The lounge has double doors, which is surrounded by a glass window that you can see everything that's happening through that glass window. So I'm on this catwalk, which is about, I'd say, probably 50 feet from where Bill is. And so during this bathroom break, I stand and I see Bill Clinton live in color, and I'm like, wow, I am looking at a former president of the United States. This is so cool. And so, of course, I was just thinking to myself, man, what if Bill Clinton was on my podcast? That would be the coolest thing ever. And so I am on this catwalk, 50 feet from Bill. There's people surrounding the area listening to what Bill has to say. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to make the most of this bathroom break. And I go, "Hey, Bill, will you be on my podcast?" And of course, he didn't hear me or anything. He just keeps talking. But who did hear me was the person standing behind me, who was also trying to get a view from the catwalk. And he goes, "Hey, man, can you shut up? I'm trying to listen to Bill Clinton talk." And so that's pretty much how that whole status originated. And some people were kind of really wondering and kind of believed that there's a possibility that I would get Bill Clinton on this podcast. And for those of you who believed that, I just want to say thank you, because you actually believed for a second, or for some amount of time, or up until now, where you've probably are very disappointed, and I wouldn't blame you if you would turn off this podcast. But I want to thank you for actually believing that a former president would take time out of his day in life, out of his busy schedule, especially with being so close to the election, that he would take time to sit down with me and talk with me on my podcast, which has not even gotten past 100 viewers. Speaking of viewers, I want to thank whoever is tuning in and listening to this. This is only the 4th episode, one of many. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to listen to me talk about my life and bullshit and stories about how I wish Bill Clinton was actually on this podcast. But for those of you who were hoping that I actually would get him on here, I will do you this. I will tell you what I would have asked him about. And as far as the questions go, I would not have asked him anything concerning the the election right now. Could you imagine if I asked him, so Bill, who are you gonna vote for? Yeah. I probably would have asked him about just what he does when he's not doing political stuff. Because anyone who tunes into that is going to expect him to talk about, well, you should vote for Hillary and, don't vote for Trump and Democratic Party and this and that, and I did not have sexual relations with that woman, blah, blah, blah. That's what everyone expects to hear. I would want to bring what they would not expect to hear. I want to talk with Bill about, so what shows do you watch when you're on Netflix, or what do you do on your free time? What's your favorite fast food? I wouldn't do it to punk anyone, and I wouldn't just ask him those questions just for the whole, idea of delivering the unexpected, or to punk any listeners, or to just to prove, how random and basic I am. I would do it because, when else am I going to get an opportunity to talk with a former president of the United States? And not just that, but I would also want to show people that these people you see on TV, on the news, they're people, despite what they've done in their career. And, if they're like Bill Clinton, him being a former president, I would show everyone that he is a person, just like anybody else you see on TV. Even if it was like someone like Donald Trump, they're all people. They all have lives. They've done things. They all have interest. When people see me, I would imagine, like, from a fan's point of view, when I go to wrestle, they probably think this guy is all about wrestling. That's all he does. He lives and breathes it. And while partly that is true, I do have other endeavors in my life, like this podcast, like making movies. Like, I go to school to get a degree. I'm a person. I watch just as much. I've binge watched Stranger Things as many times as you have. And so that would kind of be the whole idea of why I would ask him, just about himself and what he does when he's not on camera. So with that, let's go ahead and get right into the most memorable experience of my high school career, I guess I could say. So, as most of you know, I am an independent filmmaker. There's a few short films that I've made on my YouTube channel, which you can check out. If you do check them out, give them a like, please. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more short films, more podcasts, and other wrestling-related stuff, or just tenacious things that I decide to put on my YouTube channel. So before I get into the story, I need to give you guys a little bit of background. So I went to a career and technical academy. If you don't know what that is, in other words, it's a magnet school. We had vocational career programs. So you would apply for this high school, and they had different programs you could enter into, where if that's your program, one of your classes would be a class relating to that career. For example, we had marketing, we had education, we had culinary, we had medical, construction, automotive, IT, which deals with working on computers and technology and stuff like that. And so my program of choice was marketing, which was where I learned how to market products, how to sell stuff, what goes into how someone comes up with the price of a product, selling it, coming up with my own original products. I worked in a lot of groups, lots of projects, lots of stressful times, for that matter. And so that was my program of choice. So my this whole memorable experience stems from my senior project. My senior project, or a senior project in general, is the end-all, be-all project that a senior comes up with for his or her senior year. It can be individual or you can do it in a group. The only thing is it had to do with your program. So for example, if I was in the educational program, my senior project could be on disabilities in kids that go to school or something like that. So I would present a project on research that I did on kids with disabilities and how it affects their learning and how different it is for them in school and blah blah blah. That's just an example. So what I did was I knew I wanted to do. I knew I would much rather work in a group with my friends, but if that wasn't the case, then I was just going to do a project on how I marketed and planned the event of the Fight Cancer Benefit Concert, which I mentioned in my last podcast with Manuel Lopez, and which may be a subject to another story time podcast in the future. But yet again, I digress. And so I was thinking about doing that, and I would just, I would go through how I planned the event and my strengths and the weaknesses and the obstacles I came up across. It was pretty much, it would have been a totally mapped out thing for me. I could have taken a really easy route. But if I could, I really wanted to work with my two best friends, Colton and Aaron, who were also filmmakers. They're actors. We've done plays together. They're my two best buds in the world. Colton right now is in Colorado. If he was in Vegas, then he would be my co-host every time. So with that being said, I knew they were going to do... I knew Colton and Aaron were going to work together, and they were going to have two other dudes work with them in this big group project. And I was like, "What are you guys going to do?" They go, "We're gonna make a movie." And I said, "Whoa, that's definitely something that I'd love to be involved in." And so their whole idea was Colton, Aaron, and then there was this dude Pablo, and there was another dude named Dakota. Each of them were all in separate programs, so it was totally perfect. It was like the dream group project that the school administrators would want to see. Colton was in marketing, Aaron was in culinary, Pablo, I believe, was in medical, and then Dakota was in education. Although what they didn't really exactly relate to their programs, but they made it work somehow. So the whole outline of it was that Colton would market the movie, being he was in marketing. He would write it and film it, of course, because he had experience making film and stuff like that. And then Aaron, he would during the filming, because he was in culinary, he would provide the catering for the filming, which was a pretty cool idea. And then Pablo, although he was in medical, he was into graphic design, so he was gonna create the poster for the film, any graphic design, promotional stuff like that. And then I believe Dakota, actually, this is the reverse. Dakota was going to do the graphic design, and then Pablo, who is a music producer, was going to score the film. So you had basically all these four elements, and of course they were like, listen, you can't exactly, we're not sure if you can be immediately a part of this project, but we know it is a movie, and we definitely want to use you as an actor because you're really talented, and we definitely want to involve you some way, somehow. So I was like, awesome. And I was like, you know what, man, I'm going to act in this either way, but I really want to present this project with my boys. The Colton and Aaron, these guys, they are my ride or dies. I don't just want to do this individual project. I could if I wanted to, but I really just want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of the cool kids, you know? And so I was like, I need to come up with like some proposal that will make them feel like they need to use me, or my services could be of a great addition to their project. And so I was also in marketing, and I had experience event planning, and so I came up with the idea of, when they're done making this movie, and to do something completely different, what if we had a premiere for the movie they made? That'd be so cool. Like we would invite all our friends. We could rent out the auditorium, or the lecture hall, as we called it, it was where like guest speakers would go, or we had the plays in there, and they had the seats and everything like that. But we called it the lecture hall, and it also had a screen, which is perfect. We could screen the movie on there, and we could fill the place up, and it'll be a great event. So I kind of mapped out this proposal, and I met with them and in a room. And I was like, hey guys, what do you guys think of me being the event planner for your guys' movie? Like, we'd kill two birds with one stone. Not only would I be the actor, but this would also, I would add to your guys' project, and it would also fill in what I would do for my senior project. And so I remember when I told them this, they kind of like, oh, just 1 second. And they all huddle up, and they're all like talking, like they're kind of like, they're kind of looking at me, but they're trying not to look at me, and they're like whispering, like, so do you think we should? He's got BO. He's got BO. And they turn around, they're like, yeah, okay, we'll do it. And so I was like, awesome. And so I was just waiting on like when they would formulate a schedule to when we would start filming, and I would look into what would be the best dates to do the premiere. And then there was a big falling out where Pablo and Dakota decided to go separate ways. I guess there was some disagreement when writing the movie. And so then now there's just Colton and Aaron. And so they now they really had a good reason to utilize me. And when I say that, I don't mean it in like a like an arrogant way or anything like that. Like, they needed me to survive in this project. It was more of just like, now being we're all best friends and we all have really creative minds, we can really feel more comfortable about doing this, and we all know what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are, and we can all work together a lot smoother. And so, sorry, I've had a long day. Podcasting takes a lot out of me, everyone. And so we meet at Colton's house, and he has already written up pretty much the outline for this movie. It was going to be called, I don't think they had an exact title for the movie yet, but it was going to be about a new kid who's pretty much a nerd and gets introduced to the popular kid of the school, who he hangs out with the cool kids, and they're your typical bullies where they're like, oh, we don't want to hang out with nerds, and we don't do any nerd stuff, and blah blah blah. And so this new kid turns on the popular kid of the school, our main character Malcolm, to the role-playing game of Dungeons and Dragons. And so that's pretty much where the plot would take off, and they formulate this big friendship. And then there's the moment where Malcolm, who was played by Colton, would have to choose whether or not he would want to go this way or that way, if he wanted to be a nerd, if he wanted to protect his popular exterior. So they had the outline ready, and with our experience in making movies, we did not. If you ever make a movie, then most of the time you don't, especially if it's like a short film, you don't 9 times out of 10 you will never film in chronological order of the movie. Like, most of the time, what I mean by that is you will film a scene that is like halfway in the movie. That's the first thing you're gonna film when you start filming. You're not gonna. If you want, you can film. The beginning of the film, but usually because of scheduling conflicts and when people are here and when they aren't here, you're just gonna film what you can because of what location provides for you and whatnot. So in that case, we ended up filming what was the kind of like the middle of the movie. That was the first scene we filmed. And that filming just took off from there. And throughout those weeks, I secured us a date, which was going to be in February. The thing was that our senior projects weren't due until May or April, I think, like sometime towards the end of the year. But because I was planning their premiere, I wanted to get the best available date I could, and the earliest I could get was in February, which was pretty early. So we are filming, I believe we started filming in November. Yeah, November. And so we only had like 2 or 3 months to do this. So we had to really get our schedule on point. So we filmed a few scenes. And then there was a short break period because of scheduling conflicts. Being Colton had a job, and Aaron has his own life, and we all have our own lives. We all have things. Of course, we had school. We had schoolwork to take care of. So eventually, it became apparent that once we start filming, we really need to haul ass. We really need to get shit filmed. We have a deadline. And not just filmed, we also have to consider that we have editing to do after this. We have a lot of work to do on this film. We need to make this happen. And so I pretty much had to be the one to bring that to their attention. And this was probably like the crappiest part of it all, where it seemed like they kind of were really I don't want to say discouraged, but unmotivated when I would bring to their attention, listen, we have a deadline. And because of that deadline, they were like, man, like we really have to. It's no longer a choice to do this movie, to make it. It's now we have to, because we have this date reserved, and we can't just not use the lecture hall. And so they would kind of be depressed about it. Like for example, I would go to them like, okay guys, let's get to filming. And it seems like they would kind of purposely procrastinate about it and, not have any motivation. And, with Colton, who wrote the movie and was directing it, he kind of dropped out of that position almost, where he was like, if you want to take over this, man, if you what we want to get, you can go ahead and do it. Which kind of hurt me, and I felt like I was being a dick about it, and I felt like this was now on me, and we kind of lost sight of what our goals were for this movie. But alas, we got some things filmed, and it eventually became apparent because of this deadline. I think at this point we're about 3 weeks out. That's how fast time moved. Like when we're 3 weeks out from this premiere, when we're supposed to have this movie done, we're like, wow, we have all this stuff to film, and we have limited people, and we don't exactly necessarily want to have to rearrange the script. It's going to be just more stressful. And so Colton came up with the idea of, instead of doing a full-out premiere, let's just do a pre-screening. And a pre-screening is when you show an unfinished rough cut of your film. So, for example, a good example is the very first Paranormal Activity. When you saw trailers for the first Paranormal Activity, it showed you shots of the movie, and then it should show you the reaction of an audience. That audience was attending the pre-screening. A pre-screening can also be used to help you decide what jokes work and what jokes don't work. Is it too long? Is it going too fast? Is the audience liking this? Are they not? So, all in all, it was very beneficial, especially being it was our senior project, and this was ultimately a big experience for us to learn from, especially because we were all aspiring filmmakers. This is a good experience to learn from and utilize things like having a pre-screening before having a full-out premiere. So we kind of rearranged our objectives, where this date in February would be the pre-screening, and then the official premiere would be when we present our finished product for our senior project on Senior Project Presentation Day. So now that we were kind of relaxed about it, that it was a pre-screening, so it didn't have to be finished. So we had all this film, and we were like, man, we have yet to edit so far, and so we just said, you know what? I think we kind of put all of the film that we had together in the order that it would go in, and so we had about pretty much half the movie. And it came to this scene in the movie where one of the main characters says like this line, and the screen cuts to black. And so we're like, you know what, that could maybe work for this ending, being it's a pre-screening. Like, I think that could work. And so we all came to agreeance, and we didn't want to put ourselves through the stress, and so we just stuck with that, and we filmed some other miscellaneous things we needed to get filmed, and we started editing. And so to add more a similar experience to the movies, because you have to understand this was going to be on the big screen in a lecture hall that can fit like 200-300 people. And so we wanted to make the audience feel like they're at the movies. We were going to have food for this thing, which Aaron, of course, being culinary, would supply. There was going to be like we were going to talk before, we have like a little presentation before the whole, before we screen it, talk about, it's part of the senior project. It was going to be an event. And so I threw out the idea of, what would be really awesome is if we create fake trailers to go before this movie. And so, of course, we didn't have the time to do that. But luckily, earlier that year in my English class, we had a project where we had to read a book and then do a report on it, and then we could either make like a trifold about it, or we could adapt it into a movie trailer, which of course I did for the book I read, which was called Less Than Zero, one of my favorite books ever. And so I knew for the longest time that I wanted to adapt that into some type of short film of some type, and I had always told Colton about it, and so he goes, this is a really good opportunity to do Disappear Here. You should totally do it. That's what I would call it, Disappear Here. Disappear Here. And so that was one trailer we got out of the way. It took me like about, I'd say, like one day to film everything I needed. We filmed some scenes during the filming of Something Different. So because we were there and I already wanted to film, so I kind of just decided to complete it. And so this whole project allowed me to get that out of the way, to formulate that. The trailer for Disappear Here is available for your viewing on my YouTube channel, of course. So when you can, go ahead and just give that a listen. Fair warning, the audio at the beginning isn't the best because I used a really crappy microphone. Unlike this one, I really wish I had this microphone at that time, because this microphone is just so awesome. So, but yet again, I digress. That's going to be on a t-shirt one day, I know it. Like for the Tenacious Time Podcast, it's just going to say, I digress. And so we got with another group of friends we had who took part in the same project for this English class thing where they had to make a trailer, and so we just decided to put that trailer in. And I put in some vignettes in between the trailers. Like, you'd have the trailer, and then there would be a screen that says, and now a preview of coming attractions like Quentin Tarantino style Grindhouse and stuff. And we had we had a little short video that played before the movie, saying to silence your cell phones. We wanted to make it a really memorable experience. So we edited it all together, and we got what we could for the film. We got this whole big project together, and I remember we were editing, and we had it just about done, and then the computer shut down that we were editing on, which is a filmmaker's nightmare, and me and Colton were there, because we had been editing for a few hours at that time. We were just finishing it up, and we were so scared. Like, we were just contemplating if all of our work is gone for whatever reason because of this computer shutting down. We do not know what we are going to do. But luckily, everything was saved and nothing went wrong, and that was a huge blessing. So on that note, we made 2 copies of the pre-screening version of Something Different. And then eventually, of course, the day comes in February where we have the pre-screening. We got 2 days. We got 1 day to set things up because we were in marketing. We got access to some. I can't remember the name of it, the name of what they're called. But when you go to like a premiere, there will be. I can't believe I can't find the word for it right now. But basically, we got access to a red carpet, and then we had these. I'm going to call them barriers on the lines of the red carpet leaning to the door. We had the same thing on stage where we would walk on, we would get introduced and stuff like that. And so we had food set up in the background, in the back of the lecture hall. We had the screens down, and then before this whole event happened, we wanted to test how the movie would look, so we got to see a preview of it ourselves. I didn't want to watch all of it because I wanted to live in the moment when we actually did the whole pre-screening event. We got to make a commercial for it that aired on the morning announcement, so everybody knew about it. And then day of the event comes. after school, and I'm surprised. We start the thing at like 2 p.m. and by 2 we would open the doors at 2 p.m. The showing would start at 2:30. By 2 p.m. there's a good 20-30 people outside of the door waiting to see this movie, this incomplete movie we've made. And they all come in, and I was just like, man, this is going to be awesome. Because the fact, plus the event was free, so of course there's no the event is free, there's free food, a free movie, free everything. There's no reason why you shouldn't come. And so of course all of our theater friends came, all of our video production friends came, some family members came, and eventually, before we knew it, we had fucking 60 people filling up this lecture hall. And although that may not seem a lot, I mean, you just have to remember the conditions of this event. This movie that people barely know about, an incomplete movie that people barely know about, featuring a couple of goofballs they've seen on the morning announcements and in some of the plays at the school. And that's really all the background they have for going to this event, plus the free food, of course. You know, that's a really good turnout, you know, if you can get that many people for something like this. And so we're all dressed up in our blazers, and we go on stage, and I'm introducing these guys, and we talk about, you know, how it's going to be a pre-screening and the whole background of what led us to this day, which is pretty much what I've been talking about for this entire podcast. And so then, without further ado, we start the movie, and I remember because we had an audio jack that would go and we played it off of a computer, which would project onto the screen behind us. And we were testing out the audio, and Colton put the audio jack in the wrong hole. And so we start playing the movie, and there's no sound, and so we automatically pause it. And then this dude in the audience, I remember he was like, and there's already problems. And I was like, all right, we're off to a great start. And then me and Colton panicked for a second, and then I was like, oh, Colton, you put it in the wrong hole. Oh, man, that's probably not going to be the first time that's going to happen in your life. And so we get that fixed, and then we play the movie, and people thoroughly enjoyed it. People laughed at all the trailers, and they really enjoyed the experience. Some weren't super happy that it ended, you know, incomplete halfway through, but you know, they knew well enough of where it was going to end. I just don't think they liked the part where it ended. And that was the event. And so after all this mumbling about this memorable story, why is it memorable? And it's memorable because a lot got accomplished. I got to make a movie with my two best friends. And with making that movie with my two best friends, that was my senior project. That was what we did. We just had to present it on presentation day and give some background about it. And of course, we had to write our research paper about making a movie and all that stuff. But I mean, other than that little work we had to do for it, it was a really cool experience. The only thing I could have made it better was if we actually made the whole thing and there wasn't, you know, a moment of demotivation where, you know, I felt like they didn't want to make the movie anymore. But yet again, I digress. But what was really memorable about the whole thing was just creating all of these memories with my friends, getting to do something that we all loved, which was making the movie. At least for the times that they did, you know, they were motivated to make the movie. Filming scenes and all this creativity and the montages and the late night, staying up late or staying after school late with Colton to edit the movie, and being able to present it, I think, was the best part in front of the people that showed up to our pre-screening. So yeah, the biggest payoff for me was just the reaction from the audience to the movie we made. I talked about this with Levi. That's like the biggest reward, is just how people react to the piece of work you made. Whether it be funny, or if it's sad, or if it was a horror movie and they got scared. The reaction is really just the biggest payoff. And being able to make people laugh, too, because it was a comedy movie mainly, and that it got all the jokes. And most of all, I guess what I'm getting at is how they, in some way, I would really hope, if anything, that going to this event and watching this movie we made brightened their day, or it was a memorable experience of their senior year. And there was a lot of lower classmen there too, and I really hope it motivated them. Even if they weren't in film production or video production, or into filmmaking, that whatever it is they're gonna do for their senior project, make it as big as you can. That was really the whole idea behind doing what we did. With the premiere and making the movie and all the work that went into it, was make any project you get the most you can out of it. Any project, most of every project I got in high school, I would always ask, can I make a video for this, a video to go with it? Because I love making videos. When I would go to present, I want not just people to enjoy and be entertained by the presentation, but to walk away from it saying, although, it wasn't the best information, and it wasn't the best this or the best that, but it was a good time. And it made me happy, put a smile on my face. And that's really what everything I do is about. Just, if, I'll put in a bunch of work, going, like, for instance, with wrestling, going to the gym and, trying to work on my body, at least when I can, because I recently I've been able to do it, but with school now, it's been harder to make time to go to the gym and, to, watch tapes and, work on my gimmick, and train and think of new moves to do and all this stuff. It all pays off with that reaction from the audience. It really does. Or even after the show, and people go, "Hey man, that was a really awesome match," whether they like me or they don't. And that was kind of the same thing with this movie. Whether they like it or they don't, they can definitely walk away and go, "You know what, this whole event was really cool, and if they can do it, then I can do it." And so with that, it was just being able to inspire people to do something different was probably one of the other biggest payoff. So altogether, the reaction we got from the audience, inspiring people to take whatever idea you have and just throw it up in the air and hope it goes beyond Mars. Hope it just do. I know I'm repeating myself a lot, and I'm sorry for that, but I'm really passionate about this. I was really, this is the most memorable moment of my high school career, was doing this project, spending time with my friends, and getting things done that I've always wanted to do. So ultimately, it's really the audience that made it really memorable and really made the whole experience just pay off for me. And that's kind of what art is all about, all the work you put into things. It's just think about the motivation you give to someone when you do anything, whether it be wrestling, whether it be movies, whether it be a dopey YouTube channel, whether it be a dopey podcast like this one, with me just talking about my experiences. So what if people have already tuned out, which I don't blame them if they already have. If they've decided to turn off my podcast and what, this podcast isn't that, this certain edition of Tenacious Time wasn't the best. But for those who do listen in and have listened to this whole experience, and how I've mentioned all of the obstacles we had to go through, and how there was a time where it was like they didn't want to do it, but we still pulled through it. That's what matters. The people that have listened to this, and they can walk away and saying, you know what, if Ricky was able to do this, which by the way, that whole project was really awesome, then I'm sure I could do it with some thing that I'm pursuing in my life. So with that, enough rambling and enough and enough I'm digressing. With that, we're going to go and close the show. I want to thank everybody for joining me. I guess I don't have to apologize, but I do want to apologize for not having a guest for this week. I had a guest lined up, but unfortunately it did not work out. These are things that happen. But I still wanted to put out something, and so I thought of this story, especially with school starting up again, and hopefully you aren't too bothered by my stutters at times here and there, and hopefully you take something away from this podcast, whether it be, maybe I think I'm gonna try to do something like Ricky did with making a big premiere for this movie I make, or a big presentation for my finished project, or you can even take away with this. Yeah, I don't think if I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to do it like way better than Ricky does his. So with that, before we leave, I need to plug 2 wrestling shows coming up, or 3 actually. Big Valley Wrestling presents Stick to Your Guns on September 25th, and then a day before that is FSW's No Risk, No Reward. September 24th, FSW will be at the Silverton Casino, and then BVW will be at the Sahara Event Center. BVW starts at 2, and then FSW starts at 7, I believe. But you should probably get there, early, of course. And then final one to mention is Freak Show Pro Wrestling. Their next show is Dust and Bone, October 22nd at the Fremont Country Club. I can't really say much of what I'm going to be doing. But actually, I can't say much. What I'm going to do that again. And the third promotion I want to get out that's doing a show October 22nd. Freak Show Pro Wrestling here in Las Vegas at the Fremont Country Club. Their show is Dust and Bone. Former WWE superstar Cody Rhodes will be wrestling Funny Bone in the main event. And finally, after months of anticipation, Ricky Tenacious will be bringing his wrestling skills to the Freak Show Wrestling show. Man, I'll do that again, okay. And the third show I want to get out that's going to be happening is Freak Show Wrestling, October 22nd, Dust and Bone. Cody Rhodes will wrestle Funny Bone in the main event. That's going to be a match you don't want to miss, and who knows, maybe you will see yours truly in action. You just have to show up to find out, everybody. So with that being said, once again, thank you very much for tuning in. Really appreciate all you guys listening in to the stupid stories I have to tell you about and my life and such. But I will see you next time, and I will surely have a guest so I don't bore you guys to death. So once again, thank you guys for listening, and remember, if anything to take away from this, if you want to do something, do it. If you're going to do it to the fullest capacity that you can. And even when you're working hard and you're feeling burnt out and there's all of these obstacles and you're just about ready to throw in the towel, think about the inspiration that will come from the work that you provide. Honestly, I mean, that's really what's driven me to do a lot of things, whether it be YouTube channels or certain professional wrestlers or just people or media that we observe, that is the seed that is planted into our hearts that inspires us to pursue that in our life. And that's Tenacious. Thank you very much for joining me. See you next Monday, everybody.
Thank you if you're still listening. I try my best not to bore the people that listen to our thoughts, 'cause it's Tenacious Time Podcast. Oh, grab your cat and your friends and have a great time. Forget about the voices that tell you to commit suicide, 'cause it's Tenacious Time Podcast.